So hopefully you can see my screen. I saw that this talk was including Raul from Superhuman. I got super inspired by the way Raul engineered his way to PMF, so that should be a super interesting talk, and I thought about how I could complement it. So I want to speak about the right metric to track PMF, and obviously Superhuman and Raul, made popular a metric called PMF score to track it, but there are things that you need to hear to track it properly. So just a quick word on Slite. Slite is a documentation tool for teams. It's incredibly simple to use for teams of any size. We have teams from 10 to 1,000 people using it, and some of the best team out there using it daily to gather all their wiki and documents in one place. Give it a try. So in the story of Slite, which is still quite a young company, we went from focusing on retention to NPS to PMF to a modified version of PMF score. And along the way, we kind of learned things, but the main thing, and it seems quite obvious in insight, is that some of these metrics were actually wrong. And we took them just because they were, let's say, recipes that every SaaS out there is taking because you know nothing when you're a young founder. And in insight, when you're asking the right questions, it seems obvious that you should be focusing on that. So just to start with the right one, retention, I think this is the one that makes sense for any business that have repeats. If you don't have retention long-term and your business needs repeats and frequency of usage to be sane, then you should be focusing on retention and not care about anything else. So retention is pretty simple to track. This is cohorts of retention for Airbnb users by year. And there are three things that you need to check for your retention to be good. Is it flat long-term? So, are the users that are retained long-term remain retained after that? Are the cohorts getting better and better? So is the year, is somebody that signed up in year, 2017 has more chance to be retained 2 years after than somebody that was signed up in 2015, which will mean that the product activate better, is, showing more value fast and so on. And the last one is the number that you are reaching long-term is at the right level versus the benchmark of the market. And if you have these three things, then you can move on to any step after, like you can just work on acquisition and so on. You can work on growth. Before that, it's just useless. And then we focused on NPS. And this is probably the biggest point of my talk, is just everybody take metrics that feel standard. Like you take NPS, Net Promoter Scores, as a reminder, it's a question that you ask your users. On a 0 to 10 scale, how likely are you to recommend this product to your friend and colleagues? The thing is, maybe your product is not something that you should recommend. Maybe your product is actually only, found not by recommendation, but by search. And you will never speak about that to your wife or to your friends or your colleagues. Slite is kind of that. Like it's a product that is actually picked by managers in C-level, and they won't necessarily recommend it. They can, but it's not the main factor of growth for us. So if it's not the right, question for your business, probably that you shouldn't focus on that. And that's the goal of the whole talk. It's just, it seems so simple, but so many companies out there track their success based on the wrong metric. And they just have to think by first principle. If you remove all the kind of status quo and things that seem obvious, is it still the right metric? And so we ended up with the PMF score, which is a method that has been set by Sean Ellis, which is a growth guru, asking to your user base, how would you feel if you could no longer use the products? And if he found out that in most cases of hyper-growth startups, the percentage of your user base that answered very disappointed was above 40%. And so you can aim for 40% and you have a benchmark of, if it works or not. And that was quite amazing. And all the method that Raul and Superhuman developed around it was super useful for us. The thing is, I'm quite persuaded that a few years from now, we'll see backlashes on the PMF score for a very simple reason, the same that provoked the kind of backlashes on the NPS, which is some startups don't need PMF. Well, not PMF, but the PMF score. Like these questions makes no sense. For instance, Zillow is a home renting and buying platform. if you are buying a house, you probably won't buy it every year. And so, like, is it really important to like, probably that if I just bought on Zillow, I wouldn't be disappointed if the product disappeared tomorrow, and that's totally fine. So if you come to think by first principle, you will say, is this the right question for my business? Probably not. Okay, let's move on to something that is more relevant to the business. And so you just have to ask yourself a few questions, like, is it important for users to be retained, to have like a frequency of usage and so on? Or is it a one-shot buy and you don't care about, like much about the repeat? Or it's not, the ultimate key to your business? Do you care about all the users? Because PMF can also be tailored to just a part of the users, maybe not all the users. For instance, in our case, Slite is an account-based solution where you have a team lead and the members. Maybe we just need the opinion of the lead. And so on. And the last one is your distribution based on recommendation, which is really key for NPS, for instance. And just to end this talk, like the two things that PMF score is awesome for is first, the 40%. Having benchmark for the industry is actually really hard. And this one is something that has been, like created from hundreds of startups. And Channelists adds access to this data and it's anonymized. And that's, like that makes it incredible. You often have this thing where you look at the number, like the goal of NPS, and you say 50 is stellar or 75 is stellar. The thing is, like, it depends on your industry. You don't know that 40% is actually tailored to the SaaS industry. And like you can, use that if you're in this exact kind of specific part of the market. If you don't, then, probably that you should be looking for a benchmark to set yourself the right goal. And the second part is slice and dice. Superhuman pushed this method. It's not at all Channelists. The idea of saying, take your PMF, but subcut the answers by metadata. So here you have, for instance, our breakdown of PMF according to roles. And you can see that some roles are, at PMF or way above it, and some are really not at it. It let us focus our efforts on the right persona. And this is like more product roadmap, like it let you focus on the right type of features for the right type of people and stop wasting your time on the markets that don't deserve your efforts. And the thing is, obviously, you can do that with any measure. It's just that PMF introduced this, the PMF score introduced this way of doing things. So yeah, think by first principle, ask yourself the right questions. And yeah, there is no one size fits all PMF indicator, but if you ask the right question, you will find it. Thanks a lot for your time.